What's going on YouTube? This is Rybo back at the bench, and today I've got another cut or carry knife review. This time looking at the Vosteed Nightshade LT. So Vosteed sent me this knife and I gave them the full disclaimer that I would review it just like I do anything else on the channel. I would say exactly what I think about it, good or bad. I would give it the likes, the dislikes, and then ultimately a cut or carry, and that, you know, them sending the knife would not bias in any way. They were totally cool with that, so they sent it along, and I've had about a week, maybe a little bit over a week to check this out. And so I feel like I have a pretty good handle on it so far, and I'm excited for the review. So let's get into it. So I guess first of all, introduction to this knife if you have not heard about it. Vosteed, you know, I don't have a ton of background on them, but it seems like Vosteed is a company just now getting into EDC stuff. So the designer of this knife has a background with Kaiser, I believe. And you can definitely see some of this. And I want to say, and I could be totally wrong, but I want to say some of the production is taking place at Kaiser. You can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I believe I read that somewhere. I think the designer is on Instagram as Dr_EDC. I'll try to put a link in the description of the video if that's correct. But anyway, so this is released under the brand Vosteed, which seems like it's been more of a cutlery knife company and is now getting into more of the EDC and pocket knife world. There is another version of the Nightshade that I'm not sure if it's discontinued or it's just sold out, but it is not a G10 version. It's definitely more of a substantial, more expensive version. I have not seen that one. This is what was shipped to me, which is the G10 version there. So it's, I would assume, a lot, you know, more lightweight. So anyway, just to clarify, that is what I am reviewing today. All right, let's go ahead and get into the size comparison, and then we'll do the full review. So this is, let's see, let me just grab what I always grab, which is the small Sabenza. So you can see definitely a little bit bigger, but it's, you know, it's about your average EDC knife. This is the Manix 2 lightweight, definitely a smaller package, but in terms of blade length, sharpened blade length at least, I think it's about on par with that Manix 2, maybe even a little bit more. Definitely a smaller handle. And then I'm gonna throw up a knife that it actually reminds me of a lot. And I kept coming back to this comparison, and it's not a bad thing because I love this knife. And you can see that I use this knife, but this is the Keen. So this is, man, I love this knife. Had a couple of these, the Mass Drop Laconico Keen, and I just love this thing. But something about that blade shape kind of reminded me of it in the flipper when I got the knife. So they're actually fairly equal in size, so wanted to throw that one up there. So you can see it's a decent sized knife, not too small, you know, it's not gigantic. So there you go. All right, let's get into the likes and dislikes of the Vosteed Nightshade LT. All right, first up, and probably the thing that you noticed first when I opened the video, the blade. What an interesting blade. Everything from kind of the size of it to the angle of the blade to handle. It's very unorthodox, and it's really, really interesting. I love it. I wasn't so sure about, well, that's not true. When I first opened it, I loved it visually. This is my kind of knife. I have said this before, but I am really drawn to these big old bellied blades. There's something about blades like this, and I think that's why I like the Keen so much, but there's something about these leaf style blades that I just really, really like. This one in particular, and I think it's a combination of the fact that you have this really big belly and then it comes back down. You have this, what they call the negative angle, where the knife is, you know, the blade is coming down. And the fact that it's so thin and slicey, so you have a full flat grind there, and it comes down to a really, really nice edge and really, really thin. The combination of those things, for me at least, and the types of things that I do, I mean that it is a very practical blade. You know, I have used this thing daily for the past week. Let's see, I've opened a bunch of packages. I have I've cut cigars with it. So, you know, if you are a cigar smoker, you might use a cigar cutter or a punch. I usually just take a knife and very lightly score around the top of that cap to release the cap. That is a cut that you have to do something like this. And while this knife is maybe not the perfect knife for that, it does it just fine. It's good for that. I think I bled a Zippo lighter with this, where you have to kind of bleed that empty air. So I've done a lot of things with this knife over the past week. Nothing that's insane, but like your usual EDC stuff, right? The stuff that you usually grab your knife for. And it's been great. It's super slicey, but it's also great at, because of that negative angle, you know, just scoring something, a package or whatever. It just seems to be really, really good at that. And I just love the way that blade looks. It's very unique, but I don't find that it detracts from the practicality at all. Let's see, other things that I like. So the 154 CM steel, generally I like. I'll put that down as a like. I will say in other knives, I've had some staining issues, and I have noticed a little bit of that so far. You can see like right there, and I haven't really tried to clean that a ton. Like haven't tried any oils or anything. So I don't know how much that's gonna last. It doesn't really bother me with a knife like this, but definitely something to consider, and definitely something I've noticed with 154 CM in the past. The other thing that I think this knife probably will become popular for is the action. That may be your main selling point of this knife beyond the design. And the action of the knife is really incredible, and it's one of those things I can't really show in the video, but it's a flipper. It is super, super smooth. I think it's got caged ceramic ball bearings, which means it's super, super smooth, but the detent is really nice as well. So you have a flipper tab here, and it just flies out. I don't think I've failed to deploy yet. Glassy smooth, but it's also drop shutty. So check that out. I mean, I think this is a $70 knife, and that just drops shut, and that is just super, super nice. Check this out. Really, really nice. It's definitely a fidgety knife. I honestly have kind of found myself falling out of love with the fidget factor and just not really caring about that ever since I got into CRKs. But this knife kind of brought a lot of that back. This is a fidgety knife. It is awesome, and I really, really like the action of it. Another thing I really like, I think the jimping is very well done, and I'm gonna bring the Keen out to compare. The Keen is a knife that I love. It does have some issues, but I really love the knife. But I do want to point one thing out. So you have the jimping on the spine here, and you have jimping also on the flipper tab. And I've seen this done where it's done poorly, and that is super uncomfortable. But the jimping actually seems to be a little bit lighter than what you've got back here, a little bit less aggressive, but enough to get good purchase. Whereas something like the Keen has no jimping, and that is one of my issues. And I think this was, and maybe I should have brought it out, but I think this was an issue with the sheepdog as well, both the mini and the large, or the extra large, I can't remember what they call it. I don't really have any issues flipping the Keen, but occasionally you can kind of slip off or miss the deploy. With this, it's got some nice little jimping there, which I think helps a good bit. And you've got some nice, not super aggressive jimping on the spine. When you compare it to something like the Manix 2, it's definitely less aggressive than the Manix 2. I find this a little bit too much, just a little bit too hard. It's definitely more like the Sabenza. Not exactly, but more in that realm, which for me is not a bad thing at all. And then, and you have jimping on the lock bar access. Lock bar access is really, really good. That has been an issue with some knives, specifically some Kaiser knives in the past. But the lock bar access is really good. Jimping is there. Maybe it could be a tad more aggressive, but the access is really, really good, and I like that. So well done there. All right, other things that I like. So the pocket clip. The pocket clip is really nothing special, but it is an addition and not a subtraction from the knife. So it does everything very well. I thought at first that this ramp was going to be way too short to reliably get it in the pocket. In practice, that has not been an issue at all. I've been carrying this and really not even looking at it, just throwing it in the pocket, pulling it back out. Deep carry fold over, you know, I like it. It doesn't do anything. I mean, it doesn't look crazy good or anything. It just looks pretty average for a pocket clip, but it does not detract, and that is more than can be said for a lot of knives out there. The last thing that I want to highlight about the knife is actually not the knife at all. And this is not something that I typically even talk about when it comes to pocket knives, but this one was so good that I figured I would. And I do want to just remind everyone of the disclaimer. This was sent to me, you know, I'm assuming I got very good customer service and presentation and everything, but I think this is how it ships for everybody. The packaging on this was exceptional. So it comes in a little cardboard sleeve, and then you get this box. When you open this box, you get a nice little taco pouch, and the knife ships in here. But what I thought was really cool, and I had not seen this before, was you get these two cards. You get this one little thicker support card, which I think is pretty sweet. You know, any issues that you have. And then you get this card, which is cool. And I thought that this was just a business card at first, but when you flip it over, it is kind of a spec rundown of the knife that you bought. Granted, they don't have a ton of different configurations and knives, like a Spyderco or something like that, or like a CRK, but getting something like this actually reminded me of Chris Reeves and Bina Sabenza, where on the outside of the box, you have the configuration that you bought because there are so many different types. It's really cool. You get the model that you bought, which I think it actually should be the Nightshade LT, blade length, style, grind, handle material. I think that is a really sweet idea, and as the company grows and they keep, you know, if they keep doing this, I think that's going to be really sweet. It's a small thing, but I don't know why I thought that was really cool. Also pretty sweet to get a nice little taco pouch in with a knife that's, you know, $70 or so. So that was the final thing that I really liked about the Nightshade. All right, on to the dislikes, and there are a couple things here. So I mentioned the pocket clip before, which I think is an overall addition to the knife. Maybe that's not the right term. It's an overall, it's not a detractor. It's a good thing for the knife. But a couple things on it that I did want to point out. You cannot move the pocket clip. So this is a right hand carry or right pocket carry, tip up only. You cannot carry this tip down, nor can you carry this on the left hand side. So not an issue for me at all because I'm a righty, but kind of sucks for the lefties or the weirdos who like to carry tip down. Just kidding, but kind of. So that's one thing on the pocket clip. And the other thing, and this is like a super nitpick, but the kind of nickel plate finish here is not an exact match for the blade, and this is something that's super common with a lot of knives, especially under $100. But you'll have this, I call it nickel plated finish, but it's the same finish of the liners here in the pocket clip. Civivis have this a lot, things like that. It looks a little cheap to me, and I just prefer something that's more of a satin finish or even bead blasted or something like that. Not a huge deal at all, and especially for the price point of the knife, but definitely something I notice. Handle materials. So I love the G10. I think it's a great choice. I do like that they have this little spacer in here, which you can see as a contrasting color G10. The knife's available, I think, in gray and black. I'm not a huge black knife guy. I'm more of a gray or different colors. But I think the one thing, I like the G10 in general. I think it's a good handle choice for a lightweight knife like this. This particular, and I don't know what you call this, but this pattern G10 has never been one of my favorites. It has that almost like faux wood grain look to me, and I've just never been a fan of it. And that's probably because I'm a woodworker and it looks fake to me. And that's probably not even what it's supposed to look like. But I think I would prefer something that was a little bit grippier and something that didn't have this kind of, I don't know, horizontal pattern, vertical pattern here. And that's a super nitpick. But that does bring me to one idea that I had. I think that this knife would be really sweet if they released other handle materials that you could buy. So if you could purchase other G10 handles that you could just throw on yourself, or wood handles or whatever. That would be really, really sweet. So Vosteed, maybe an idea. And the only other thing, and this is again more of a nitpick, but I do think it would be sweet to have continued that jimping right into the liners here. Not something that I like super notice or anything, but I have seen that done, and I think it definitely adds something to the knife. But that's really not a complaint as much as an idea. All right, so cut or carry. So I was a bit unfair with this knife. I really wanted to be fair, especially because it was loaned in, or not loaned in, it was given to review. And I wanted to be super fair with it and not be biased and just put out this big pump up review. And so I was overly hard with it and was kind of scrutinizing it for things that were wrong with it, or dislikes, things that would make me appear unbiased. And that's not fair. And it's a good thing that this was the knife I was reviewing, because I didn't have to do that. I really love this knife, and it's awkward to say that after it was given into the channel, but I really, really like this knife. I don't know if Vosteed watches the channel or has seen it in my videos, but like, this is the type of knife for me. Lightweight, has that big belly, has this kind of leaf style blade shape, nice action, fold over carry clip. I mean, this speaks to me, and it's kind of funky too. But I love this blade geometry, the angle of that handle and blade. I really like it, and as I carried it over the past week, it was like, this is a natural EDC knife, at least for me. And so, try as I might to scrutinize it, I really loved almost everything about it, from the aesthetics down to the actual use. So for me, this is a strong carry, especially at the price. I think it's like, again, I think it's like $70 or something like that. I'd be interested to see the non-lightweight version, just to compare and contrast, but I am a big fan of the light. So anyway, hopefully this was interesting and introduced you to a new knife maker and new knife model here. It was definitely really cool to get hands on it and be able to do this review. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.